What's going on, folks? It's going to be a short video. I actually have about 30 minutes before I got to go into work, and I am lagging. Okay, much better. Anyway, I just want to give a quick update on a few things. I where is my phone? I did something with it. Anyway, I called G-Man. Well, G-Man gave me his information, and I called and contacted him. For those of you who have not heard, he is not going homeless. He's more or less sulking because he can't do hangouts. He's fine, but I'm going to send him the money for my Patreon just because. He's going to put it towards getting a new laptop since his is fucked up. He's been telling us about his issues with his laptop for quite some time, so I guess now is it's finally kind of culminating to the point that he really can't do anything with it. So uh, other than that, I had interesting conversation on a Deeper Than Dogma last night, and I actually got to speak to Keefe because I'd been hearing all kind of things from people about him, but this is the first time I've actually spoken to him on not necessarily one-on-one basis, but um, on a more stable format instead of just random people just blathering on and yelling at one another. But I will say this: he did say some pretty ignorant stuff as far as towards homosexuals, but I think a lot of it has to do just with ignorance and not necessarily hate or spite for homosexuals, and I think that needs to be recognized because we do have individuals like Christian Hillbilly, and like Tommy Hall who demonize homosexuals for whatever reason, and they tend to stand out more than others, and it's really easy for us to kind of group people in with them, even though uh, the some of the assertions may sound exactly alike. And so I just wanted to throw that out there because he did make a statement that he does have a serious gap in his knowledge as far as how people are homosexual and how it actually affects their lives, and the ins and outs of homosexuality in and of itself. I hate that we're all now saying that phrase, but anyway, he did express an interest in correcting that and learning, and did not want to be labeled as such. So I take that as I am open to learn. I'm opening myself to learning more and correcting my behavior, and uh, I think that is a step in the right direction away from fundamentalism. And I would like to extend Keefe's the invitation to kind of talk more about that and other topics because he is a young brother, and when I mean brother, I am referring to kinship as fellow skin folk. And so there's a lot of things that he also mentioned that I think he and I need to talk about offline as far as um, education in the realm of people of color, especially in history and this contemporary environment. So, like I said, I think education is one of the biggest issues here, and I can kind of sympathize with him to a degree. Growing up in an environment myself where homosexuals are demonized and there's lots of misinformation being passed around as factual. So that's just my perspective. I know some people really took some of the things he said to heart, but I realized that he was a lot younger than I imagined him to be, and so that does play another role. So in this age of technology, we should be able to try and work out what's true and what's false, given that we have these great resources now. But if you never know that something you believe is wrong, then how can you know to go correct it? But I think some of this backlash that he's received has opened his eyes to a degree, and that's like I said, that's a step in the right direction. What else? Oh, speaking of G-Man, I will actually be sending him money on Western Union sometime during my lunch break today. I only work on weekends, so that's why you see me a lot during the weekdays. I am going to start probably hosting regular hangouts early in the mornings, and then just kind of leaving the rooms open just so people have a place to hang about. And I'm not sure what time I want to do this, but I'm guessing I'll get in contact with people who frequent hangouts and for like Nadia's and whatnot, and see what time they're usually up, and then just go from there, and then hand over my controls so it doesn't turn into a complete uh, you know uh, insert whatever derogatory term you want. uh, Other than that, I will be taking a vacation to South Carolina next month at the beginning, toward the beginning, I'll say from the 6th to the 13th, and I will be going to Charleston, South Carolina. I mentioned this in Nate's Hangout yesterday that I do have family there, and that I do know a lot of the people there because they are my family, mostly in-laws. But I think that is something that's going to be very important to me because there is a very secular mindset that recognizes that the people of Charleston have an interesting history when it comes to crimes against people of color, and that some of their reactions is due to their religious beliefs, but also from Stockholm syndrome. They've gotten to the point where they have accepted violence from their white counterparts as normal, and so rather than rage against it as some will, they'd rather accept it, and that does play a huge role in their docile nature. And so, what I've seen on the Google tubes here, Google YouTubes, is that many of the Christians here who really don't understand that social aspect of the situation will co-opt their pain and their issue for their own narrative. And I actually went off on Matt Bell and Roy Montero about that yesterday. There are certain nuances attached to these statements that are being missed because many of these guys, hell, almost all of them, have no clue about the history in that area. Some of the churches that are being burned have been also burned in the past by Klan members who are also Christian. And now, one of them that was burned recently in the last, about say, 12 days, had been burned, was rebuilt, and now has been burned again in the wake of the shooter, uh, Dylan Roof. So that's very symbolic, and that's very interesting as well. So I needed to put that out because some of the Christians that I encountered seemed angry that I would actually add the context to this and challenge them and tell them that just because some people see their docile nature and they see that their forgiveness is such a powerful thing, well, you're seeing the part of it that you want to see. The other part, the part that some of us who are related to them know, is that that is a part of the culture there, and their culture plays just as big as a role as their religious beliefs, and you can't overlook it just because it just so happens to fit your narrative. And so that honestly pisses me off because it again shows how little those people actually mean. They just serve to fill the holes that you need to get your point across. What they actually feel and do and think doesn't really matter. And so that ties into my personal feelings towards the Christian religion because it has essentially used my people, my ancestors, for their own purposes. But I'm sure I'll get into that later with some Christians, maybe some moderate ones that we can kind of chat about, and some of the more fundamental ones like Roy, who has the truth and the whatever for everybody. But I do find it interesting how people that know little to nothing about the subject want to remove that context, but when I add it in and challenge them, they become irate. It's interesting. Anyway, I'm going to go head off to work. Actually, I'm going to head back to the fleet. I will be back around 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I get off from work Saturdays and Sundays around that time, so I'll be free to chat. I'll probably be doing homework while chatting. So, other than that, see ya.